You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.
So do you like Stephen King movies, even with all the bad acting? Yeah? Do you like third-person shooters? Yeah? Then Alan Wake is the game for you. It labels itself a psychological thriller, and rightfully so. It was developed by Remedy Entertainment, the same team behind the Max Payne series, and published by Microsoft Studios. It was released May 18th in North America. It got a PC release in February of 2012. What we're taking a look at today is the Xbox 360 version. Alan Wake is a best-selling thriller novelist. He has a case of writer's block and hasn't wrote a book in about 2 years. He and his wife Alice decided to take a vacation to Bright Falls, a small rural town in the middle of nowhere where nothing can go wrong, right?
It's a trap!
They arrive in town and are greeted by some interesting town folk.
Do me a favor, Sonny! I could really use a tune right now. Coconut, number 6 in the jukebox.
He never ends up meeting the person he was supposed to get the key from for his lakeside cabin, but a mysterious woman emerges and gives him the key, who isn't the villain, I swear, at all. I mean, all in the dark and scary talk, in the dark with a scary voice and the camera leaning on her. Really, she isn't the villain or bad in any way, I swear. I mean, what would make you think that? You know, it's dark, scary voice and all. I mean, there's no way she's the bad guy, right? It's just coincidence. I mean, she's, in the dark talking with foreshadowing. She's not really the villain, Anyway. You end up at your vacation getaway and find out that after settling in, Alice has a surprise for you. It seems she left you a little room to call your own with a typewriter to help you get back to writing, hopefully a new scene, and change the routings will give you some inspiration. Alan, feeling angry that he thought he was just on vacation and nothing more, now he's feeling pushed to write and takes off into the night to clear his head. Just footsteps outside and Alice screams in fear as the lights go out. Alan races back to the house to see the ledge is broken and that he can see Alice floating away in the dark water below. Jumping in, he wakes up in a crashed car with no idea how he got there. Waking up and taking off into the night to try to find some answers is when all the craziness ensues. Shadowy figures with axes and such start trying to attack you, and it's up to you to deal with them, giving you a kind of a deliverance feel, with all the crazy mountain people out to get you.
Well now, well, louder, 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 louder.
Moving through the town, you found that it isn't just the people there. It's something bigger here at work, some kind of dark force. Upon further investigation, it turns out that there's actually a kidnapper who has taken your wife hostage in order for you to write him a story. With even more investigation, it seems like there may be a dark force here that has taken your wife. And I say maybe because the story can be interpreted in many different ways depending on how you want to perceive it. With a plot twist left and right, never knowing what's real and what isn't, Alan Wake is definitely a wild ride of what is reality and isn't. The story is a huge selling point of the game. It's one of those stories that's hard to explain without giving much away, but to try to put it in a few brief words, it's part horror, part psychological thriller, and both parts coincide very well. It keeps leading you on, giving you a small piece to the puzzle, one piece at a time, and sometimes they don't quite match up, what makes it so engaging. I will say when the credits rolled, it was kind of a letdown, but at the same time, it's one of those stories something like Inception. The ending is completely up to you how you choose to view it, which gives it a lot of depth. At the end of the day, Alan Wake's story is intriguing, interesting, but it does leave something to be desired. However, if you're a fan of Stephen King in any way, this story is right up your alley. And if not, welcome to the type of storytelling that makes you feel like you're experiencing something amazing, but at the same time you're not really sure if it's amazing, or it just has clever moments, or what you just experienced was completely stupid. Alan Wake is cut up into 6 different episodes, and I really mean episodes. They end with credits and the next episode opens up with an opening and a recap of the story so far, just like a TV show, or more rather one of those Stephen King miniseries like It, The Stand, or even The Langoliers. The forest, music, and surrounding towns and folk inside of it give a very interesting atmosphere, which in my opinion is amazing, and it really fits the bill of what they were going for. The voice acting, I'm really torn on. It's very cheesy and dumb and just flat out ridiculous at most points. But at the same time, I feel that's what they were going for. As Stephen King movies usually have this kind of acting, so I look at it as that's what they were going for. And if not, this is bad. Really bad. If you have never watched one of Stephen King's miniseries or one of his bad movies, then you're in store for something epic as far as bad dialogue. And even at that, bad timing just to have certain conversations. Take this scene for example. Alan and his friend Barry are just having some playful banter, even though shadow men are out for their blood. And on top of that, Alan's wife is God knows where at this point, and there's no idea what's happening to her. And also there's like possessed objects coming to life and attacking them, and they're just so carefree about it.
Did you call 911?
Guess that one saw the light, huh? You didn't like that one? A tough audience. Well, I got plenty more.
What are the Christmas lights for?
Protection, man. Like garlic against vampires.
Vampires.
The helicopter's just across the parking lot and up the hill. Come on.
The Bright Falls General Store is now my favorite place in the entire world. See this headlamp? It's like a superpower. I can just look at one of those things and they die. It's my flaming eye of Mordor. I wish I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want a headlamp.
Last one.
Bastard.
Another way they convey the story is through these TVs spread around the game. They have little episodes called Night Springs, kind of like the Twilight Zone, that show little episodes that are kind of summing up what's going on in the story. Also, Alan will sometimes find himself on TV talking to you, rambling about what's going on in his head. Dark, gloomy surroundings with rich forestscapes that expand out into darkness do give you that lost in the woods feel, and when the sun does come up, it shows off the town a lot better, and for a game being almost 6 years old at this point, I think it still looks pretty damn good. I am quite confused though. When they're actually having cutscenes, the facial expressions are completely weird. Alan is about the only character that doesn't look like he's about to have a seizure when they're talking. Lip syncing is completely off, and it really breaks the immersion of the storyline every time they show one of these cutscenes.
15 minutes?
Sure.
Alan, thank you for coming here with me.
I love you too. Go on. I'll promise to behave.
Luckily, they're few and far between. Most dialogue happens in-game or in Alan's head, and mostly during the gameplay itself. And honestly, I think they should have just kept it this way. I think it would have ended up a much better project. Alan Wake is a third-person shooter / survival horror game. It does take a new approach, which I think is a great idea. So the evil that has taken over the enemies you fight are surrounded in darkness. They are invincible unless the darkness is removed from them. And how do you do this, you might add? With light, of course. From flashlights, flashbangs, flares, spotlights, headlights, etc., light defeats the dark. So your flashlight is like the aiming reticle from, let's say, Resident Evil 4. You control it with the left stick. This will melt the dark off the enemies. You can hold down the left trigger to focus the light harder on them, which will melt the darkness off faster. Once stripped of the darkness, then it's time to shoot them with your guns. You can use a revolver, shotgun, and even a rifle, and they're all pretty satisfying for the most part. But really, the star of the show is a flashlight. There's something about melting away the darkness, kind of like melting a piece of ice. It's very satisfying to do. If you're too surrounded, you can drop flares or shoot a flare gun. It's like a third-person shooter, but with a little mini-game for each enemy before attacking them, and it works really well. Mostly you'll be doing slow-moving shadowy figures who throw axes at you and charge you, from normal-sized guys to big burly men who take a little more light to kill their darkness and a couple more rounds to put them down. Later in the game, inanimate objects start being possessed from the darkness, and now you have to deal with them, from killer wheelbarrows, oil cans, and even possessed farm equipment. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, and it is, but it's still fun to use light to melt the dark off those possessed killer objects. Combat is fun. Even though Alan has very clunky movements, he does have a dodge ability, and it works for the most part. Not being able to move so quickly adds to the suspense. As much as I love combat in the game, it's not an action-packed thrill ride. There are huge parts of the game where you would just be following someone and talking, looking around for something, just walking and talking to yourself, which is great for the story, but would really leave me just wanting to get back to some of the action points. Oh, and by the way, your inventory is switched up all the time because Alan loses his stuff like every 20 minutes. By going through the story, it does make sense for this to happen. At the end of the day, Alan Wake's combat is interesting to say the least, and enjoyable whenever you actually get to do it. If you like psychological thrillers, or even Stephen King's type of storytelling, as well as a particular acting that goes along with his work,
Scaring the little girl!
then you will enjoy the story for the most part. Even with me not being a fan of his work, it is interesting to say the least. When it comes to the combat, it's original, it's suspenseful, and fun. However, this isn't a shoot 'em up. You do get to shoot up a lot of enemies, but that's when the game calls for it. There are long periods of time where you are just walking, exploring, or just even watching. At the end of the day, I think the atmosphere here is the star of the show. The mountain town really gives you a sense of loneliness and isolation, and that really there is no one there to help you when you are all on your own. All of that wrapped up, in my opinion, it was good, not great. My playthrough was about 14 hours or so, and during there were times where I was really enjoying myself and other times I just wanted to get it over. I did enjoy it when it was done, but I wouldn't want to go back and revisit it at any point. The ending also left a sour taste in my mouth and left me with more questions than answers. And I know that's what they were going for, but I like a little more satisfaction in my endings. Pick this up if it's around $10 or so if you're interested. I think that's a fair price for what's here. It's worth playing through just once at least. So this is Kamikaze Soundwaves. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next time. Later.